Okay, so tell me about, is my child on grade level? Because that's what I'm concerned about, is if they're where everybody else is in their class.
Sure, you want to know that your child let's see, a ninth grader this year is going to be competitive with other students her age once she graduates high school.
Correct.
Yes, she is. There are a couple ways we know that. One, we can take this RIT score, 241 in math, for example, and we can go to some of these documents that we have. This one is called comparative data to inform instructional decisions, but we could also look at the document called normative data. And for ninth grade in math, the average score is a 233. So your child's score was a 241, so yes, she is above average. There's another piece of information on here that tells us how she's doing in math. 66th percentile. 50th percentile is average. And if you look at what our state calls proficiency on our state tests, that would be 40th percentile or above. So in both cases, yes, she's on grade level. And if you look down here in all the areas of math, she was above average. She was high average in every one of the goal areas within math. Number sense, geometry and measurement, algebraic concepts, and data analysis and probability. So she's quite consistent, and she's above average in math. And you could go through the same kind of process for reading or language usage or science.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that there was a drop in the score from when she took the test in the spring till now, this fall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about that.
Well, there are a couple of reasons why that can happen. Actually, more than a couple. For one thing, over the summer, most of the time we encourage kids to be kids over the summer. They may not be studying, at least not as much as they do during the school year. So keep in mind, from last spring to this fall, she wasn't getting formal instruction, and maybe she was, as a ninth grader, she may have had a part-time job. She may have been doing some babysitting. She was doing other things. So that's not unusual. Also, there are times when we all have a bad day, and maybe it's more difficult to concentrate. Maybe it was uncomfortable in the room. It was too hot at the beginning of the school year. The air conditioning wasn't working. So a lot of things can happen. But there again, what I would focus on is if you look at from beginning point in spring of '07 to currently in fall of 2012, she is doing quite well. She is outperforming both the national average and the district average here. And if you look at the information we just reviewed over on the text format of this, she's still above average. And keep in mind also, her percentile rank has not changed. She was at a 66th percentile in the spring. She's still at a 66th percentile in the fall. It's just that her RIT score has changed a little bit. And her projection from this fall to next spring is certainly still in a positive direction. So if we look at this trend line, everybody has their ups and downs. But we can see that she's definitely on her way to doing well.
I'm concerned about my child comparing to other students in the state or in the nation. Does this tell me where my child is at as far as compared to students, other students that she might have to compete with someday, I guess?
Yes, and especially getting into college and things like that. There are 2 points of comparison on the MAP assessments. We get a district average, which is shown on our graph in the orange line, and we get the national average, which is shown in the blue line. Also, the percentile rank is based on a national average. It's not a district average. So nationally, she is certainly competitive. We do not get a state comparison with MAP, which I think is okay. I think it's more important for us to know that our kids are competitive with other kids nationally than just with other kids in the state of Nebraska. I would suspect that Nebraska averages would be somewhere in the same range as national or district averages, but this is the one that I'm concerned about. If you look at every area for this student, math, reading, language, she is outperforming the national average consistently. So yes, she's certainly competitive.
If my student takes the MAP test, why do we still have to do the statewide test?
The state accountability, which is the NESA test, Nebraska State Assessment, and we have that in reading, math, science, and writing, is our high stakes test. That's important feedback for us as a district. We need to know how are we doing in terms of teaching the standards that are required by the state of Nebraska. The shortcoming, as I see it with the NESA assessment, is it's sort of like comparing a physical that you would get from your doctor to an autopsy. The NESA tells us how we did. It is after the fact, it's at the end of the year typically, and it just tells us how we did. What MAP tells us is what to do. It gives us a roadmap for instruction. One way you can think about this RIT score that we get from the MAP test is think of it as meaning ready for instruction today. Because NWEA has aligned their RIT scale, it's an equal interval scale, just like a ruler or a yardstick. They've aligned it with our state standards in all of these areas. So we can choose a state standard and we know what RIT score corresponds with that standard by their alignment study. That tells us that's what this student is ready to learn. So if we go into some information that they provide us called Descartes, and we can look up this score range, and then we can break it down by goal area even further, it tells the teacher that's where this child is ready for instruction right now. The other thing that's unique about MAP is it's an individual experience for every student taking it. It's adaptive. So the first item on the test starts out at their grade level. If they get that one incorrect, they get one that's easier. If they get it correct, they get one that's more difficult. And so when it's found their instructional level, they're getting half of the items correct and half incorrect. That's the exact zone that we want for teaching and learning, because they have some context for information that they're getting, but they have a lot to learn from the teacher in a learning environment. That's what the MAP test provides us. It's very detailed and it gives us information on what to do instructionally right now.
Excellent. I noticed in the reading area, a couple of the scores were just a little bit lower or down. Is there anything that I can do as a parent, or can I work with her on certain things, or
Sure.
what kind of suggestions do you have?
Okay, so yes, her reading score was very strong. She's above average. 85th percentile is a very strong showing, so she does well. But what you'll notice down here is you'll see that some of her skills within the area of reading were high and high average, and then she had one area that was average, and that is main idea and details. So on questions that were asked within the MAP assessment about main idea and detail, she had a little bit more difficulty with those. Now I don't want you to worry about that because her score was average compared to other peers nationally. But it was a little bit lower. So how can we push her skills forward in that very important area within reading? There are lots of things you can do. First thing I would direct you to is the Lexile range here. So for independent reading at home, I would suggest you go to Lexile.com. You can enter in this Lexile score, and there's a place for that. It's very straightforward and easy to use. You can enter in this score, and then it'll ask you to choose topics of interest for your child. Maybe she's interested in mystery. Maybe she's interested in nature and science. You can pick topic areas. And it'll generate a reading list for you that are appropriate for her Lexile level, her reading skill level. And I would focus on this end because we want independent reading. When we get up here, she's going to need lots of support for understanding those materials well. So those are things that maybe at school with a lot of support from the teacher she'll be successful at home. Go with this level or up to 150 points below that. So that's one thing. Next thing you can do is, if we look at this strategies packet for parents and students for improving reading, writing, and math skills, there are a number of things we can do here too. She's a little bit old for reading to her, but maybe you can read together. Maybe share a book. You read the same book at the same time and have some discussions about the topic of the book. One of the things here, check your child's assignment notebook daily. Well, we have a one-to-one initiative at our high school, so she doesn't have an assignment notebook. But you can log into PowerSchool and look at what her assignments are and discuss those things with her. So those are just some study habits and those kinds of things. We can go to the library to get books at her level. We have labeled our books in our schools with the Lexile levels, so she can go to the libraries at school and pick things out. And then as far as that main idea in detail, you can talk with her. And that's another suggestion that you'll see down here. It's under vocabulary development, actually, but open-ended topics. Ask her questions about what she's reading. What did she understand from it? What did she get out of it? If she could give the story a title, what would it be? That will give you a good idea if she's understanding what she's reading. So main idea and supporting detail are comprehension skills. So that's where you want to ask lots of why questions. What did you think about this? Why did you think that? Always kind of dig deeper and get those meaning questions from her. So we have lots of potential strategies here. We could go down to reading comprehension and pick out specific strategies for improvement. Then it gets into writing. But those are some of the things that I would suggest.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.